When the bustle goes out of fashion in the very late 1880s, the focus of the style is turned towards the sleeves. So even at the beginning of the 90s, we start seeing the little puff of the sleeve accentuated. This is matched with simple tight bodice and a skirt which is originally quite narrow but then reaches this typical tulip shape I mentioned in the previous part. Also, the hats start to change from small sensible hats to more decorative hats with broader brims. They are usually called the picture hats. Bonnets are now worn only by very conservative or elderly ladies and only for occasions like going to church, let's say, so something that would require special modesty. Fashionable women wear hats and the hats become quite decorative in their own right. Feather decorations, sometimes dyed feathers in different colors, become popular. This is matched with what you might generally call natural inspiration. So fur is in fashion in colder season in the form of decorations of the hems and cuffs, but also muffs and fur collars or fur boas for warming the neck. As I already mentioned, the tailor-made costume, so a matching suit consisting of a skirt and some sort of jacket or bodice in the same fabric, usually a darker color wool, becomes dominant during the day. This really becomes the most popular form of day wear, very sensible. This is the kind of fashions that are strongly connected with this new woman ideal, so more independent, more educated woman who enjoys the pleasures of the city. This will also be the costumes worn by the suffragettes. So the middle class women who become more politically active and especially they demand the vote, the right to vote. So that's what we have. Another thing which we observe quite a lot is the new hairstyles, which also resemble, at least partially, the hairstyles of the Romantic period. That is, again, the focus is on the top of the head, as you might remember in the period of the Apollo knot. The knot of hair is again popular. It is worn on top of the head. It could be rather small, not as emphasized as in the Romantic period. It could be worn still with a short fringe. What is important and what is different from the Romantic style is definitely it is softer. It doesn't look stiff. The hair, however elaborate in the Belle Epoque style, it's never stiff. It's kind of soft and rounded. Here we have two photographs showing women wearing this kind of hairstyle. So a small knot of hair on top of the head. This would, of course, in the outside of the home would be covered by the hat. Note on also the emphasis on the shoulders. Either the big puffy sleeves in the shape of the leg of mutton, or also popular short epaulettes, so short oversleeves, just to emphasize the breadth of the shoulders. Also note those high collars. So even young women, like the ones in the photograph here, want to wear those high collars even when their necks do not show any signs of aging. This is just the power of fashion. Young women in this fashion want to look more sophisticated and mature, so they would follow the styles that wouldn't really work in their favor perhaps so much. But still, compared with, let's say, the early Basel styles, the hairstyles are relatively small and soft, and the big chignon never returns. So here we have a fashion plate with some indoor costumes, probably versions of tea gowns or gowns used for hostesses who accepted visitors during the day, and you have the small puffs, and you have a small sensible hairstyle with a short fringe. Of course, during the evening it all gets a bit more elaborate, and the dresses replaced the tailor-made costume. The tailor-made costume was almost never worn in the evening. This was the time of dresses. If you could afford to participate in formalized entertaining during the evening, of course you required a proper attire. And if you remember our discussion of the styles, different levels of formality, the Belle Epoque style of course follows those levels of formality as well. So in the evening you have shorter sleeves. Again, they might be quite puffy, like in the Romantic style. You might have the beret sleeves, so they're kind of round, the balloon sleeves, or generally any kind of short puffy sleeves. And the lower decolletage. Sometimes this is the moment to use those close-fitting necklines in the place of the high collar. And the turn of the century is a great time for pearls and diamonds, so white jewelry, but it can be worn in great numbers, so multiple rows of pearls of different lengths, or large necklaces of diamonds, or basically anything that you could afford. The Princess of Wales, and after the death of Queen Victoria in 1901, the Queen Alexandra, the wife of Edward VII, especially loved pearls and diamonds, so of course she popularized that. So if we look at the evening dresses from the 1890s, we have those big sleeves with emphasized shoulders. We very often have kind of, especially in the early and mid-90s, we have a kind of geometric shape of the decolletage, so a kind of square shaped decolletage rather than anything rounded. This might be emphasized by the decorations around the decolletage and the bows, or the ribbons in contrasting color. Many dresses show that. Here, for example, you can see a collar, a small ruff collar worn as a fashion accessory, even with the evening dress. So the fashion really plain again, favors covering of the neck to complement older women. Hats were usually not worn in the evening, so this is not following the fashion of the 30s, but rather you have some sort of jeweled decorations of the hair, and especially the feathered decorations of the hair, which follow the natural inspirations. So we have those puffy sleeves in the long version during the day and in the short version for evening wear. Here we have a photograph of Princess Alexandra, so the Princess of Wales, wearing a very sensible tailor-made costume with a simple, almost masculine looking hat, but of course the shape of the garment is feminine. So we have the same principles that started to be visible in the fashion of the 70s and the 80s. That is the tension between the growing modernity and practicality and femininity, traditionally understood femininity, and the desire to look attractive in a Victorian way. So here we have the sleeves, and the upper part of the body really becomes very popular. Some geometric patterns, especially for day dresses. Here we have some dresses with contrasting applications, the kind of bands, the ribbon, decorations in contrasting color that would be seen as modern and attractive, with small puffy sleeves or some sort of accentuation of the shoulders, like the epaulettes, almost always with the high collar. The high collar really dominates this fashion. And here in the specimen showing a day costume with these decorations, note also the hat. The hat is relatively small, but it's quite decorative, and if I can see correctly, it includes a stuffed bird or part of a bird as decoration. So this is really something that becomes visible in the Belle Epoque. The hourglass figure, of course, part of the attraction of those emphasized shoulders was that the waist appeared even smaller. However, it could be achieved by a corset as well. The professional beauties still are popular, so we have celebrities and actresses and socialites and singers, opera singers mostly, having international careers and inspiring fashions. One of the great fashionable ladies of this period is the Duchess of Warwick, Daisy, the Duchess of Warwick. Here we have a photograph of her, and photographs of beautiful, fashionable celebrities were very often collected by the fans in the middle class. So this is something that appears quite often. Some more images from the late 90s showing the day costumes, so mostly different versions of the Art Nouveau dresses with a lot of natural inspiration. They all take the inspiration with the plants, with this kind of wavy, ivy shapes that are quite popular. the hats and the decorations on the surface of the dresses very often are taken from the natural kingdom. The tulip dresses start to dominate, so they needed those special petticoats to be staying in shape. And the tailor-made costume is very, very popular still, especially during the daytime by those new women who live more urban lifestyles. If we look at the caricatures of this period, what is sometimes ridiculed is still the assumed masculinity of these styles. So the fact that women look like men, or at least their bearing, their behavior is more assertive, it's more independent. They don't really look like meek, feeble characters from the mid-Victorian period. They do not really look like they need a man in their lives. Here is a caricature from Punch showing a man being kind of crowded by those ladies and basically dominated by them. And the second caricature is even stronger in its meaning, because here we have a fashionable couple walking, and a woman explaining to her little son who they are. And he actually, she says that, well, he uses the name of a woman for a man as well. If you know anything about the forms of address in the 19th century, when a woman married, she lost not only her surname but her first name as well. So she would be like Mrs. John Brown. If her name was, let's say, Jane White, after she married John Brown, she would not be even Jane Brown, she would be Mrs. John Brown. And here we have the man being called by the lady's surname. So this is Lady Jane Brown, Lady Jane White, let's say, to use the previous example, and Mr. Jane White. So, yep. The woman looks very assertive, and she stands straight, and it's too masculine for the traditionalists in the Punch magazine. Of course, a masculine magazine by men for men in the middle classes. So this is the situation at the turn of the century. Another very popular decoration are contrasting stripes, mostly for day dress. Here we have an example, a specimen from the atelier of Worth, and here we have the woman wearing those striped clothes, very popular at the turn of the century. And another very popular inspiration, this time from America. You have to remember, America is growing as an economical power at this time. This period in the United States is called the Gilded Age. So this is the age of the millionaires. This is the age of American rich women, or the daughters of the rich families, coming to England to look for impoverished but titled husbands. This happens all the time, and they bring some American fashions with them, like the fashion for a Gibson girl. A Gibson girl comes from the name of the artist Charles Dana Gibson, who was a cartoonist, very popular in America, and He had a very characteristic style, and a very frequent character in his cartoons was a new woman, a Gibson girl. So a beautiful, curvaceous woman with very feminine hourglass figure made of soft curls and a very characteristic hairstyle, which is a version of this top bun. And here we have a close-up of such a character from Gibson, and also a portrait of one of the English socialites, Alice Keppel, one of the mistresses of the Prince of Wales and later Edward VII. She's actually some ancestor of Camilla Parker Bowles. So when Camilla and Prince Charles met, she told him, the first thing she told him, that my great-grandfather, your great-grandfather and my great-grandmother or something were lovers, and yeah, you know how it ended. So we continue in a moment.